Science is rapidly progressing. People can create innumerable satellites orbiting the planet, devise means to transport people to the moon, and set foot on Mars to explore the universe, but there are still many locations on the planet. It is a mystery that mankind has yet to discover. It's a vast ocean of abandoned land. People still tell each other stories about a long-lost civilization. The legend of Atlantis. The city of Atlantis is one of the world's oldest stories. Plato, the famed Greek philosopher, first stated it about 360 before Common Era. Tells the story of a prosperous land that disappeared abruptly and sank into the sea. According to Critias, the ancient Greek gods partitioned the earth so that everyone might have the most. The ancient Greek gods treated Poseidon favorably, awarding him ownership of the island of Atlantis based on his preferences. The island is larger than ancient Libya and Asia Minor combined. According to Plato's tale, Poseidon fell in love with Cleito, the daughter of Evona and Leucippe, who gave birth to 5 pairs of male twins. Atlas, the greatest of these, legitimately crowned himself king of a vast island and ocean, named Atlantis, the Atlantic Ocean in his honor, and was born with mountains and a fiefdom in the surrounding area. Atlas' twin, Gadeirus, also known as Eumelus in Greek, compared the island with Hercules' pillars. They also granted authority to rule over many people and large territories to 4 more pairs of twins, Ampères and Evaemon, Mneseus and Autochthon, Eleusippus and Mester, and Azais and Diaprepes. Poseidon transformed the mountain he adored into a palace, with 3 circular moats of increasing width, 1 to 3 stadia apart and separated by land rings of proportionate size. The Atlanteans then constructed bridges north of the mountain, creating a passage to the remainder of the island. According to Critias, a conflict raged 9,000 years before his birth between people outside Hercules' pillars in the Strait of Gibraltar and those inside them. The Atlanteans conquered Libya's pillars of Hercules, as well as Egypt, continental Europe, and Tyrrhenia, enslaving the defeated. The Athenians formed an alliance against the Atlantean Empire. After the partnership disbanded, they battled alone to free the captured lands. However, some time later, there was an omen ceremonial earthquake and flood, followed by a day and night of mourning in which the entire bodies of the Atlantean warriors were swallowed up by the earth, and the island of Atlantis was destroyed, vanished, swallowed by the water. So, does the city of Atlantis really exist? Philosophers, historians, and archaeologists have debated the existence of Atlantis for over 2,500 years. Finding the city of Atlantis is a never-ending quest for valuable treasure. It appeals to archaeologists who enjoy exploring. Many historians and scholars believe that Atlantis is really an imagined historical story. However, many other researchers are convinced that Atlantis exists. It even suggests the current location of the city's flooding. The hypotheses presented below serve as evidence for that assumption. 1. The city of Atlantis is located beneath the Bermuda Triangle. Recently, Canadian geologists discovered the remnants of an ancient city sunk off the coast of Cuba at a depth of about 200 meters. 2 scientists, Paul Weinzweig and Pauline Zalitsky, led a research team using a diving robot to dispel doubts about the existence of a stunning city in the ocean, 700 meters east of Cuba. The resulting photographs depict monumental structures featuring many sphinxes, at least 4 large pyramids, and a variety of other architectural works. But that isn't as shocking as the fact that this city is located in the renowned Bermuda Triangle, a region notorious for several strange disappearances with unknown causes. The above discovery is compatible with legendary accounts of Atlantis' departure as a result of a flood, earthquake, or massive volcanic eruption. According to researchers, this calamity occurred near the end of the Ice Age, when a series of Arctic ice caps melted rapidly, causing sea levels around the planet to increase dramatically, devastating the impacted area. The northern hemisphere is the strongest. Coastlines shift, and islands, including mainland islands, disappear. According to estimations, Earth's sea level was roughly 120 meters lower than it is now. The system of ancient symbols and hieroglyphs on the Cuban islands, which are identical to those shown in the newly discovered underwater buildings, lends credence to the concept of an advanced society. Furthermore, the The four pyramids here, one of which is constructed of glass, are taller than the Giza and Cheops pyramids in Egypt. The raw materials for their construction are hundreds of tons of cut and polished stone slabs with bizarre engravings resembling a form of little-known Egyptian hieroglyph. The discovery by Canadian scientists is an intriguing surprise that will undoubtedly benefit archaeology in particular and the scientific community in general, with the potential to change human history. 2. The city of Atlantis did not sink into the sea. German computer programmer Michael Hubner believes that Atlantis is not a myth, but rather an ancient metropolis that a tsunami off the coast of Marrakesh threw out to sea. Morocco. He computed the location of Atlantis by collecting data and information from the sage Plato's papers and carefully examining the smallest evidence. He used important words from Plato's works to pinpoint 51 details and establish Atlantis' absolute location. Specifically, notable terms are: multiple rings surround Atlantis, which is located near the coast. Hubner discovered that Morocco has the same traits as described. The position is exactly where Plato described it, in the center of the desert, 1,127 kilometers from the sea. In the center is a little mound of land, akin to the rise in the heart of Atlantis. There are several rings of river bottom that bear a striking resemblance to the legendary city surrounding it. In his book, scholar Mark Adam acknowledges Hubner's hypothesis, describing it as the most convincing. Another coincidence is that an earthquake previously struck the Suez Massa Plain, destroying the city. 3. The city of Atlantis is located on the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, between the islands of Ship and Sarah. American researcher Robert Sarmast claims to have discovered proof that the legendary city of Atlantis does exist and is currently located at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, between Cyprus and Syria. He explained that deep-water sonar imaging revealed man-made features such as a 3-kilometer-long wall, a fortified mountaintop, and deep tunnels on a submerged hill. We are unable to provide definitive evidence in the form of bricks or mortar because these artifacts are buried beneath several meters of sediment, but the context and accompanying evidence are indisputable. Except, he said. In his book The Discovery of Atlantis, Sarmast stated that the island of Cyprus originally belonged to the lost continent and was its highest peak, emphasizing that his discovery was nearly identical to the philosopher's claims. Find this mythological city-state in the works of ancient Greek Plato. 4. The city of Atlantis is located in Southeast Asia. Is this accurate? If Atlantis is currently located in Southeast Asia, knowledge of Earth's geography at the end of the Ice Age reveals that sea levels were 200 feet lower than they are now, and enormous ice sheets formed to blanket North America and Europe. As a result, you can see that the archipelago now known as Indonesia is a continent the size of Western Europe, reaching from Australia to the Indian subcontinent. An ancient understanding of the Atlantis continent mentioned a sea that surrounded Eurasia and Africa. However, Atlantis' true location is the East Sea, which includes the Indonesian Sea that borders the Java Sea. The subtropical temperate Asian environment is ideal for the growth of a modern civilization, which fueled technical advancements in the late 20th century. This was proven by Stephen Oppenheimer in his book Paradise of the East. Southeast Asia is where human civilization began. The people of ancient Southeast Asia spread legends about the fairy-tale city of Atlantis and the Great Flood throughout the world after the calamity. This calamity occurred at the conclusion of the Ice Age, approximately 11,000 years ago. The Sudanese continental shelf is the result of the submersion of more than half of Southeast Asia. Japanese researchers recently discovered the Yonaguni Pyramid in northern Taiwan's deep sea, supporting this notion. 5. Antarctica is home to the city of Atlantis. A current notion proposes that Atlantis is located in Antarctica. As a result, Atlantis is not a land of ice and snow at the end of the globe, as it is now. The continent used to be right near the equator, with a tropical climate. The movement of the Earth's crust later caused it to shift. In terms of Chinese science, a geology specialist mentioned the hypothesis of crustal movement. As a result, the Earth's crust experiences significant movement once every 40,000 years. changed the continent's positions. Thus, until around 12,000 years ago, the Antarctic continent may have been closer to the equator, not yet frozen, and ideal for prehistoric settlements. While not entirely confirmed, Dr. Vanessa Bowman of the British Antarctic Survey asserted evidence of a dense tropical rainforest canopy covering Antarctica in the past, akin to that of modern-day New Zealand. Similarly, scientist Jane Francis from Leeds University, UK, stated, "The ice mountains in Antarctica are relatively new if placed in the process of geological history." Since then, proponents of the new concept believe that the Atlantis civilization reached its zenith during prehistoric periods before geological upheavals and the Ice Age destroyed it. Today, the evidence that Atlantis is in Antarctica is extremely consistent. In frozen Antarctica, people discovered pyramids covered in snow and ice, pollen grains, and samples of microbes thriving in salt water. This suggests that perhaps Antarctica was radically different in the past. It may be warm enough to support human life. And perhaps buried under the thick ice is an ancient civilization, as Plato described. 6. The city of Atlantis is located in the Sahara Desert. Although the theory that Atlantis arose in the Sahara Desert is ludicrous, there are many differing viewpoints about it. However, experts are unable to explain many strange phenomena here, including similarities to the lost city of Atlantis. During the initial missions of the era of human space exploration, some astronauts photographed the Western Sahara Desert, which has a unique topographical structure. Astronauts were intrigued by the beauty of the Earth as seen from space. The Rick-Hat Formation, also known as the Eye of the Sahara or Africa, is a circular topographical structure with a diameter of almost 45 kilometers. The Eye of Mahara is located in Mauritania's desert, some 25 kilometers east of Waden City. Chris Hadfield, a Canadian astronaut, recently photographed the Sahara Eye from the International Space Station, ISS. His photograph sparked a fever throughout the world. People began to question the traces. Why are there concentric circles in the middle of the lonely desert? People speculate that perhaps a meteorite fell here. However, scientific teams were unable to locate meteorite fragments. From a distance, these circles appear to be extremely symmetrical. The concentric circles remind people of the various legends of lost Atlantis. Many people expressed their approval for this survey. Could the Saharan Sand Sea have drowned Atlantis instead of the ocean? 7. The city of Atlantis is located in southern Spain. The United States led a study team that used satellite photographs of a presumably sunken metropolis to discover a site just north of Cádiz, Spain. They believe they have discovered Atlantis, an ancient metropolis submerged in Dona Ana Park's huge wetlands. Archaeologists and geologists investigated the area using terrestrial radar, digital mapping, and underwater technology. After a tsunami destroyed Atlantis, refugees built a series of strange memorial cities in its image. That boosted researchers' evidence and confidence. Mr. Freund stated that the lucky Atlanteans who escaped the tsunami went inland and created new towns. We found something that no one has ever seen before, which helps add confidence, especially in terms of archaeology, says Mr. Freund. It's tough to imagine a tsunami landing 100,000 kilometers inland, yet that's exactly what we're talking about. Experts intend to do additional excavations at the site where they believe Atlantis once existed, as well as at enigmatic towns in central Spain, to better understand the geological formations and determine the ages of things. 8. Atlantis is currently known as Santorini. Many scientists endorse this increasingly common theory about the true nature of Atlantis. Atlantis was located on Thera Island, which is today known as Santorini in Greece. This is a Mediterranean island located several hundred kilometers from mainland Greece. People believe that the legend of Plato came here and recorded information about this country since it is so close to the site described by Plato. In reality, the myths of Atlantis and Santorini share many similarities. Santorini is the largest island in the same-named, tiny circular archipelago, formed by the ruins of a volcanic crater. This is fairly similar to what Plato wrote about concentric circles. Santorini boasts outstanding geographical structures that existed before the Minoan eruption. The interconnecting rings represent distinct parts of the city. Ships can navigate these locations via the island's moats and canals. Plato's description of Hercules' stone pillars is believed to allude to the clouds hovering over the roughly 40-kilometer-high Minoan's peak, visible from all over the eastern Mediterranean. This statue is truly magnificent. This brings to mind the Greek tale of Atlas, who held the heavens on his shoulders. The public strongly supports this proposal. The destruction of Atlantis coincided with a severe volcanic explosion at Minoan's mountain in Santorini. Then the tsunami washed away everything on the island. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of multi-story buildings, indoor plumbing, and extensive air filtering systems, implying that the inhabitants who lived on Santorini before its collapse were far more advanced than their predecessors. Other Greek lands at the time. Nowadays, hundreds of tourists visit Santorini Thera each year to sip local Atlantis wine and talk about the fabled city of Atlantis. They believe that Santorini is the only place where they can find Atlantis. 9. Atlantis is only a mythical city. Most scholars agree that the fading civilization is purely a product of the Greek philosopher's mind. Some researchers argue that Plato drew inspiration from real-life historical events. Consider the Battle of Troy or the volcanic eruption of Terra. Today, it is the Greek island of Santorini. Plato's talks regarding the continent of Atlantis were unquestionably based on historical knowledge. There appear to have been numerous reports of natural disasters destroying a mighty nation. This enormous disaster made its way into Greek history and eventually found its way into the works of philosophers a millennium later. Plato mentioned the later catastrophe hypothesis in an idealized version, portraying Atlantis' vast wealth and unbounded power. As a result, stories narrated many years later have exaggerated or embellished events. Finally, it is important to note that the depiction of Atlantis is extremely similar to the reality of ancient societies. But it was not Plato's objective. Plato did not consider Atlantis to be a civilization. Plato, merely a tool for propagating ideas, is a philosopher and not a historian. In order to prove his theory, Plato had to fictionalize Atlantis as an unbeatable foe. Plato used detailed descriptions of Atlantis to impress readers with its material abundance, technological power, and military force. What defines history is not wealth or power, but rather the ability to manage society and people. The intellectual achievements of a civilization are becoming increasingly important. It always exceeds money and worldly power. That is exactly what Plato intends to convey through a hypothetical city. Now, I bet you're still confused about which of these Atlantis is real after reading all these complicated ideas. In your opinion, which of these regions may genuinely represent the location of Atlantis? No matter how deep the oceans go, people will never stop trying to solve the riddle of Atlantis. Its existence is a mystery to all. Lastly, if you're feeling good, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video to be the first to know about future exciting uploads.